Welcome to Tape 2 of Health Through Nutrition. Join us now as Dr. Robbins concludes this informative series on how to gain health through nutrition.
Do you think that we have the perfect breeding ground for an infection right there? Absolutely. These toxins entering this mucous membrane have weakened it, and we have toxic debris. The germ comes in after the fact. It comes in after the fact. It didn't cause it. I remember first year I went to college, I ate 4 meals a day. And the food service that we had at the university had ice cream, all you wanted. And I helped myself. I was telling this college freshman patient about this, and she said, "Oh, I know what you're going to say. You did the freshman 10. I said, "What's that?" She said, "Well, all freshmen gain 10 pounds the first year of college." I said, "Well, in my case, it was a freshman 30. When I got home that summer, I worked outdoors, a summer job. I started exercising. I was getting plenty of rest, didn't have any stress of studying. And my folks were semi-health nuts, so the diet was much better. I got the cold of my life. It lasted for 2 months. I couldn't figure that out. Here I was doing everything better. Got a cold. Because the reason I mention this is because some of you say, "Well, I never get colds in the wintertime. Mine come in the summer." And if you say, "I haven't had a cold in years," hang on, you're in real trouble. You see, the body wants to dump these poisons, and through that college year, boy, it had plenty to dump. But why couldn't it? Too much energy being expended with the stress of being a student, not resting, and every day all this barrage of food. Never got a chance to do any house cleaning. You know, if you just go to garage sale after garage sale and buy and buy and buy, think you're going to do something with this one day, and say, how does the garage look after a while in your closets and under your beds, right? Just keep filling up. And finally, the summer came. My body says, "Thank you, thank you. Now I'm going to clean out." So that was a summer cold. Not a virus, not a bacteria. The body wanted that to happen. It takes energy to have a cold. Cleaning house. How about your neighbor who doesn't exercise, couch potato, eats everything that he shouldn't? You're trying to take care of yourself. Winter comes around, you get a cold, he doesn't. In fact, he's never had one in many years. Reader's Digest published a study, medical study a few years ago, and they said that people who have less than 1 cold a year are in a much higher risk bracket for cancer. That doesn't make sense. A lack of colds is considered healthy. How come there's a higher risk bracket for cancer? One of the things I like to ask people, patients with cancer, when is the last time you had a cold? Invariably, I'll hear 2 years, 5 years. I can't remember when I had a cold. Here's what I'm leading up to. When we get a cold or infection, what do we generally do? Some kind of medication. Stop the symptom, even antibiotic, kills the germ. Have we done anything for the cause? The toxins are still there, and in fact, because we feel better, we sort of back of our mind think all is forgiven. No, I didn't do anything to cause this. Hey, I can just carry on like I was. Same old routine, same old lifestyle, same old toxic diet. Next year, it rolls around again. Go back, another antibiotic, and so on. Kids, because they have so much energy, they're constantly trying to cleanse. And you go to the doctor, antibiotic, 7 days later, the symptom's gone. Week later, infection. Back to the doctor, antibiotic. Can you see it? You've seen them, haven't you? All we've done is killed the bacteria, done nothing to do with the cause, and we keep feeding it in and in. If we do that year after year, keep suppressing the symptom with medication, and continue to put the toxins in, eventually the vitality of the body is so low. Remember vitality? How much energy the body can manufacture? The vitality is so low, there's so little energy in the bucket that the body says, no more can I do any active cleansing. No more colds, no more flus, no more skin problems. Those are active ways the body's trying to push poisons out. The body now says, the best I can do is just hold these poisons. I can keep them out of the bloodstream, I can keep them off the liver's back, but they're just going to have to sit. Now, if that happens to be a heart, we've got heart problems. Chronic degenerative disease. Any tissue that we poison year after year after year, give it no relief, the cells eventually begin to break down. Chronic degenerative disease. Cancer is the end disease of all diseases. You cannot be any sicker and be alive. Right now, cancer is the number 3 cause of death in this country. Number 1 is heart problems, but that's changing. It won't be just a few years, and cancer will be number 1. And here's the reason. They are coming up with better and better drugs, if you want to call them better, to keep people alive longer with heart disease. You see it coming? So if I'm staying alive longer, taking this drug, I got a heart disease, take this drug, I'm staying alive longer only to consume more toxic diet, only to put more poisons in my body. What's the next step? Cancer. And there are some estimates I've read that every person in this country will have some form of cancer across the board. And I can believe it. Right now it's 1 out of 3. 3 out of 10, actually. Here's what cancer is. Let's say this is a lung cell. Got a smoker, toxic body. As these cells are dividing, make new cells, we've got this real toxic environment here. The genes are splitting apart to tell the 2 new cells who they are and how to function. It's your lung cells. This is how you function. In this toxic environment, the genes become confused. They mutate. There's a Nobel Peace Prize given just a couple of years ago. Brought out this idea. And what happens is we have born over here not lung cells anymore, crazy cells, cancer cells. And cancer cells, no matter where they are in the body, all have one basic characteristic. They breathe carbon dioxide. All other cells breathe oxygen. Cancer cells literally become plant cells based on the carbon dioxide breathing capacity. No longer lung cells. They don't act as lung cells. They don't listen to the brain as how to function. They just keep growing and growing. Now that was the result of years of suppressing toxic input and not letting the body cleanse it. Now we're going to talk about the 2-year-old who has cancer in a minute, because that, he hasn't been at it long enough. But I want you to get this picture of what happens when we keep suppressing. Now what do we do when we get a cold? What should we be doing? Great. This is great. Thank you, body. Thanks for taking care of me. I've been slipping up. You're trying to tell me this. Cleaning up. Now you can see if someone is really clean that they wouldn't get cold. Well, that's obvious. But the person who's very toxic wouldn't get colds either. We've talked about them. The one in between gets cold. Yeah, I'll get one about a year. I'm not perfect. But I welcome that cold. I look forward to it. It's exciting. It lets me know my body is still alive and working for me. Now, some of these patients we have that hadn't had colds in years, so they start changing their diet, and I say to them, look, you call me when you get a cold, because we're going to have a party. You know what that means? That their body is coming back to life. That the vitality level is coming up and they're able now to kick the poisons out. So when you have a cold, just let it roll. And ask yourself, how far off base have I been? Am I slipping? Is the body trying to tell me something? Or is this just an annual spring cleaning going on here? One point, how is it that cancer prolongs life? Said you learned that. Or any chronic degenerative disease. What was the reason the body stored the toxins in the tissues that eventually resulted in cancer? Why did the body store the toxins there? Keep them out of the blood, keep them off the liver's back. Remember that? So if the body had not sent the poisons to the tissues, the liver would have shut down years ago. We would have died. Or if the toxins not left the bloodstream to go to the tissues, would have died years ago. Too toxic. But innate intelligence, always striving for survival, put them in the tissues. That bought us many years. Yes, it created a disease which eventually can kill. Remember, the symptom is really our friend. What do we do with an infection? Remember Reuben? Right, we're going to let it roll. Now, just listen carefully, because if you've got children, this gets tough. Now, I've got 4. I know what you're talking about. But that fever is the body's effort at trying to keep the bacteria's toxins. The bacteria is in there actually cleaning up, living on the toxins. It is cleaning up the house, but it's making some toxins of its own, which are poisons to our body. So the body will rev up the metabolism to hurry up and clean house, get the poisons out, also get the bacteria's toxins out of our body. And one more thing. Viruses and bacteria don't like high temperature. They don't thrive well in higher temperature. It slows down their metabolism. And what do we want to do when we get a fever? Let's get that fever down, you bet. Oh, but if you don't treat the infection, people die. They have serious complications. I'll tell you why people have complications from infection. Because they're trying to treat it. That interferes with what the body was already trying to do. We interfere. We get in its way. Remember, innate intelligence knows what to do except when man interferes. It does the best it can, but often it ends up in disaster. I had a pathologist tell me one time, he said, we've attributed for years brain damage to high fevers. It's not true. I've looked at a lot of dead brains. It's the drugs we give when there's a high fever running that causes any brain damage that may result. You see, when that fever is raging, the body has a lot of energy tied up on that increased metabolic process. There is less energy available to the liver. And that drug comes in, there's no defense. And it goes anywhere it wants to and creates havoc. So how high are you going to let a temperature roll? I don't have a problem with 104. That may be too high for you, but what do you do if it gets to 104? You recommend a cool enema, not cold. Don't want to shock the body. Cool enema, sponge bath. What else should we do when there's an infection? Do you have much of an appetite? In fact, what happens most of the time when a person eats with an infection? Throw up. What's the body saying? Oh, but you've got to keep up your strength. Let me tell you, that person would not have a fever if they needed the energy from food. The body would slow down the fever to free up the energy to be able to digest food. You could just count on the body doing that. It will not allow the fever to happen if there's not enough energy in reserve to handle it. So, we should rest. Isn't that right? The body's telling us to rest. Fast. We need to drink plenty of water. Plenty of water. It doesn't hurt to take an enema or two a day. Clean out the bowel because the liver's doing a lot of dumping. Help just evacuate that. And just let it happen. If you want to drink a little diluted fruit juice, 50%, get a little glucose in the system, fine. Now here's this child. Now, the first time I really put this to the test, it was not my child, therefore a lot easier to do it. But we've got many parents who said, thank you for holding my hand through this situation, because we have been through so many antibiotics. The fever starts, an antibiotic, and we're back in the doctor's office 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. But here's little Ricky. He was 5 years old, and his mother brought him in. He'd been on antibiotics virtually every day of his life, ear infection. And so I explained to the mother what we were going to do as far as diet change. And I said, now listen, somewhere down the road he's going to have an ear infection, and it will be a doozy. Because for 5 years, what his body's been trying to accomplish there has continually been suppressed. There's still an infection suppressed in there, ready to come out. Just know it's going to happen. Call me. He called me, I don't know, several weeks later. He has a fever, 104, ear infection symptoms. I went to see him, house call. Unheard of, right? Look in his ear. Sure enough, a nice ear infection. I said, all right, he's going to fast. Just water, stay in bed, let it happen. If he gets over 104, cool enema. He never had to do that. And I said each day you'll notice that the fever will drop just a bit, and the last day it'll be gone almost. The 8th morning, everything's normal. He'll be in the kitchen begging for food. And I kept tabs, and it was happening as I said. The 8th morning rolled around. She called. She said he has a fever, 104. That's great, I think. And so I went over, looked in his ears, no ear infection. Listened to his lungs, pneumonia. Aha! He laid there for a week, no treatment, that's what he gets. I said to the mother, when did Ricky have pneumonia before? She said, when he was 3. And I said, I assume it was treated with antibiotics? She said, yes. Now, if you've ever had any lung problems, infections, that's treated with antibiotics, and you have a chest x-ray, even years later, there's still that little pocket in there of that infection that's put on hold. You see, his body went through 7 days cleaning out the ears, and it said, I still have enough energy, I want to do the lungs. And so for 7 more days, he fasted. Now, can you imagine that? 5-year-old, 14 days, no food, just water. The 15th day rather, he woke up, perfect, I'm hungry. That was the end of his ear infection. after 5 years of fighting them. Now, what if it's my child? Oh, that's different rules now. No. Our children have had a few infections, and it's always something we contribute to. We went to a party or 2 or 3 in a row, and they're real good about, most of the time, about just having one bite and leave it, because they know we've taught them. And when they come home feeling miserable, without condemning them, we just say, now let's sit down and talk about why you're feeling like you're feeling. But we just let these fevers roll. But till you get confidence in the body, here's the way to handle it. If you can let that fever roll for 1 or 2 days before you say, that's enough, then that's great. They're 2 days ahead. And then give them the antibiotic or whatever it is you're going to give. The next time it rolls around, because it will, it's not finished out yet, then maybe you can go 3 days, because you begin to see that the body really has a plan in mind. It really is orchestrated, that it is not haphazardly doing this. That's tough when it's your kid, I know, when they're hurting. But think of the alternative. Cancer? Something else along the way? Possible. We keep suppressing those toxins, we're going to end up with a more serious disease down the road. Why do you think kids eventually grow out of ear infections, sinus infections that they had when they were infants? Why do they grow out of them? See, we keep suppressing, plus keep feeding toxins. Eventually the body says, I can't do this anymore. And so it's got that ear infection on hold, possibly permanently. It didn't grow out of it, it's still there. It's just the body now has to find other ways to try to deal with these toxins. The question that comes along about this time is, what determines? Now, if it's toxins that are depositing in the tissues, what determines if it's going to go to the heart in somebody and the kidney somewhere else? I mean, we've got 2 neighbors here. They eat basically the same lifestyle. One's got kidney disease, the other's heart disease. How about the 2-year-old has cancer? Let's just talk about those questions. And if you look over on page 22, the determining factors of disease susceptibility, and we list 4 factors that determine where the body's going to fall apart in the face of wrongdoing, wrong eating, wrong lifestyle. Where is it going to fall apart? Number 1 is attitude. There's growing evidence of the relationship between what we think and how our body responds. That's not a new concept to any of us. What I'm saying is, in the last 20 years, the scientific community is beginning to come up with explanations, the actual mechanism of the connection between the mind and the body. Now that's the Attitudes in Health seminar, which is available. That just puts that in place for you. And I will just say at this point that there is no way that we can ever attain total health until we look at attitudes. You can eat perfectly, exercise, get all the rest you need, but if you got a lousy attitude, you're going to have a health problem. Just that simple. And in that seminar, we talk about the relationship between different specific attitudes we carry and different specific physical problems we'll have. For example, people who have a lot of low back problems often have major concerns and worries about finances and fear of the future. And they just need to learn how to trust God more. People with allergies, what is that? Well, it could be a physical problem, but I'm saying it could be an attitude attached to it. It's not what you're allergic to, it's who are you allergic to. Who's irritating you? So we go through those and explain that on that tape. And I look at the physical symptoms we have as our friends on all levels. Just as, is the body telling me I'm eating too much junk with this symptom? Or is it telling me that I've got an attitude I need to work on, that I've been running from or suppressing? All symptoms are always our friends. Number 2, the types and severity of stress. We're talking about the determining factors of where disease sets up housekeeping. The type of stress. Maybe you're a cigarette smoker. Which part of the body are you really stressing in a big way? Well, the lungs. So your diet overall is toxic, and then we're really hitting these lungs hard. We're setting the stage for lung disease. Next, the genetic potential, and number 4 is the vitality of the body. Now we want to look at the vitality of the body. It's on page 23, number 3 there. The vitality of the body. How much energy does the body have? What is the energy producing capability? The more energy it has, the more poisons it'll push out through the surface of the body. Again, that's why children have a lot of mucous membrane diseases, skin problems. As we get into adulthood, those seem to go away. And we start ending up with chronic degenerative diseases, toxic storage diseases. Then this number 4. If you turn over to page 25, actually 26, the genetic factor. We do not inherit diseases. We do not. What we inherit are the tendency towards the disease, the propensity for a disease. Back in the 40s, Francis Pottinger, he was a medical doctor, he wanted to know what processed or junk food does to the body. Now, he was not a health nut. No one financed his research. That's very important to know. No one told him what results to come up with, in other words. And he began some experiments with cats, 800 cats. He divided these cats into 5 groups. The first 2 groups he fed whole foods. And we'll tell you what the results of those are first. They lived normal, happy, healthy lives throughout the experiment. So let's set the health food cats aside. The other 3 groups he fed processed foods. We will call these junk food cats. Here's what he noticed. The first generation junk food cats, at the end of their lifetime, begin to develop diseases like cancer, like arthritis, flus, allergies, colds. The end of their lifetime. The second generation junk food cats develop those same diseases in the middle of their lifetime. The third generation junk food cats develop those same diseases that their grandparents had at the end of their lifetime. These third generation cats developed them as they were born. In fact, some of them were born sick with them, or within a matter of days or just a few weeks. They developed the cancers, the allergies, the flus, and so on. There was no 4th generation. The 3rd generation parents were either sterile or they aborted their offspring. Right now in this country, 25% of young adults are sterile, cannot conceive. 25%, the worst it's ever been. You're hearing more and more about spontaneous abortion, where the female body just aborts spontaneously. Why? Because the bodies are too sick to conceive. Can't do it. There are children born today in America with cancer, born with diabetes, born with major heart disease, born with cirrhosis of the liver. Have you heard the term of the disease called biliary atresia? Biliary atresia. Yes, you have. That's what they want to do, the liver transplants in the little kids, the infants. Technically, that's cirrhosis of the liver. That's an alcoholic's liver. Now, how can that be? How can these little kids be that sick? And here's Grandpa, who's violated everything we talked about. He's in pretty good shape, 85 years old. The genetic factor, because each generation where the parents do not eat correctly when they conceive, what they pass on to that child is a weaker genetic structure. It takes less wrongdoing for that structure to begin to break down. It's like building 2 identical houses, one with good materials, one with poor quality materials. When the tornado comes, there's a difference. On page 27, we summarize. We start off with the inherent genetic weakness. If Dad had a heart problem, then what I will inherit is that tendency towards heart problems. I won't actually have the heart problem unless I violate the laws of nature. Then the heart problem is going to manifest. And most likely it will happen earlier in my life than it did with my dad. Maybe Dad didn't develop his until he was 65. Mine may come when I'm 30. Only if I'm violating the laws of nature. If I'm not, I don't have to have a heart problem. Next, the general health of the parents when they conceive a child. Here's the sperm, eggs, they're going to join together, new cell. The sperm is just an extension of the male body. Same with the egg. What if the male body is toxic? What if the egg is toxic? What's that first cell? It's toxic. The health of the mother while carrying the child. The mother will compete with the baby for nutrition if she's not healthy. The Pottinger cats taught us that, because the 3rd generation cats who did conceive aborted their offspring. See, if that mother's body knew it could not get through carrying a child and stay alive, the baby went. The mother will compete with the baby for nutrition. What the mother eats What do we think makes the babies? It's the food. The mother's eating junk food, got a junk baby. What is the child fed as an infant? And of course what it eats as it's growing up. Look over on page 29. There is a chart that shows what we have done with our diet in this country since 1900. We'll just highlight a few of these. You can read this over later. But our fresh fruit and vegetable consumption decreased from 40 to 20% since 1900. Butter consumption down by 75%. I put that one there because in spite of that, in spite of dropping our cholesterol enemy, butter, we have more cholesterol problems today than we did in 1940 when they first found out about cholesterol. We're eating vegetable oil, corn oil, margarine. What's the problem? They're still heated. They're still just as sticky to the artery as butter that's heated. Beef consumption increased 75%. Who do you think has something to do with that? The beef industry, absolutely. Dairy products have increased 25%. Before about 1912, dairy was not considered one of the basic four food groups. In fact, there was only 3. It was around that time as dairy farmers said, hey, let's sell our product. And they got to hold the scientific community and convinced them that dairy is necessary for life. Sugar consumption increased 50%. The average American consumes 150 pounds of sugar a year. Now, I don't consume any sugar a year. That means one of you is consuming 300 pounds of sugar a year. Who is it? Who is it? Raise your hand. Okay. 300 pounds of sugar. There he is. Okay, we found him. Okay. Our diet makes a difference. If we look around the world, we look at the countries who do not eat like we do, they're healthy countries. You look at the countries that eat like we do, they're the sickest nations in the world. Australia, the highest beef-consuming nation in the world per capita. They have the highest incidence of cancer any nation in the world. Argentina is not far behind. This country, we're the highest dairy-consuming nation in the world per capita. No other nation in the world. And yet we have the highest incidence of calcium deficiency of any nation in the world. Some little fact the dairy industry would like you not to know about. Because the dairy we're consuming, you can't use the calcium. It's inorganic. It's been pasteurized. On top of that, even if we can use some of it, we're doing so much wrong to rob the calcium out of our body. The red meat, the caffeine, the sugar, all pull calcium out of our body. There are studies that show that countries in Europe during the war, World War II, when they could not get processed foods and they had to start growing their own food in their backyard and they couldn't get meat, the national health picture improved tremendously till the war was over and they got back to eating good food. So our food does make a difference. Let's talk about drug therapy right here on page 30. Just so you know what you're doing when you take any kind of medication. Now, I understand that I am all for crisis care. Our medical profession in this country is the best in the world when it comes to crisis care, saving a life. And I'm not saying stay away from hospitals altogether. I'm just saying if you're fighting a life and death situation, go to the hospital. Absolutely. But our doctors in this country, that's as far as it stops. They stabilize life and they say, off you go. Versus saying, now that we've got your attention, you know how you got in this mess? You want to get out of it? You want to prevent future problems? See, that's where we fall very short in this country. What does a drug do? How does it actually work? If you ask a pharmacist, how does aspirin kill pain? He'll say, well, we really don't know. We think it has some sort of a generalized numbing effect on the entire body. So whether you have a headache or a toe ache, no pain. Except if you have stomach pain. Aspirin does not kill stomach pain. How many of you knew that? Well, now if it numbs the entire body, it should take care of stomach pain, right? The stomach's part of the body. Well, we just don't know. So let's say that you're out in the woods and you're hunting, and you get a thorn in your finger, and you decide to head back to the truck and get some tweezers and get that out. So as you're walking along there, going through the barnyard, you step on a nail. Do you still remember the thorn in your finger? Was it healed? No? What happened? Had something more important, something more life-threatening getting your attention. Our body can only focus on one thing at a time. And then as you're climbing through the fence, you shoot your toe off with a shotgun. The other foot, of course. Do you remember the thorn in your finger? How about the nail in the other foot? Why not? See, something more important, more life-threatening going on. When you take an aspirin, whether it's buffered or not, every aspirin will cause a teaspoon of bleeding in either the stomach or the intestine. Salicylic acid will cause mucosal bleeding in the stomach. If you have a headache, generally caused from toxic blood. Which do you think is more life-threatening? Toxic blood, internal bleeding? Usually internal bleeding. That's right. So the body simply shifts the attention from the brain to the stomach to deal with that. The toxic blood is still there. If the aspirin does not take care of the headache, then that means that the toxic blood was more life-threatening than the internal bleeding. So now you need to take 6 aspirin. You see, and you'll create a greater diversion in the stomach. Why does aspirin not take care of stomach pain? Where is the body already focused when you have stomach pain? The stomach. So if you create some additional stress there, does that change priorities? Does it shift the energy? No. It stays right there. So if you have stomach pain, what you want to take is Tylenol, because that plays havoc with the liver. So we're going to shift attention over to the liver. Now, all drugs basically work that same way. They simply create a new diversion, a new stress that's greater than the stress that you're complaining about to the doctor. All drugs. They're not the answer. And again, sometimes we might need them to stabilize or save a life, but that's as far as it needs to go. How about anesthesia? Look on page 34. Anesthesia. When they knock you out for surgery, how does that work? On 34, we're going to talk about the healing process here in just a second. I just want to mention anesthesia. That drug they give is so toxic that our body says, wait a minute, you want this in the system and you want to stay alive. Is that right? Okay. Well, I'm going to need a lot of extra energy. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to be lights out for a while, because I need the energy that's keeping you awake so I can keep you alive. That's what it is. Literally that. If it weren't for the fact you passed out, you'd die. How about those drugs that say, when taking this, do not operate machinery or drive a car? That's what's happening. Sleeping pills work the same way. They just need so much energy, they'll shut you down. Now, don't be like the fellow that every time he'd take his medication, it makes him kind of flip out a little bit. The way he would do it, he'd get on his bicycle and he'd just ride. And he'd wake up, 3 or 4 miles down the road from his house. And one day he woke up and he'd gone across town in rush hour traffic. And it just scared him to death. I could have gotten killed. I don't even know how I got here. So he called his wife and he said, come pick me up. And she did. He put the bike in the trunk and was driving home. And he says, this is crazy. I could have died. She said, well, what are you going to do about it? He says, I figured it out while I was waiting on you. I'm going to quit riding my bicycle. A lot of truth in that story. Page 34, healing the natural way. Now, we've talked about how we got sick, and that's pretty depressing. So let's talk about how we get well. And just know that it is not the mentality that we're used to. We're used to going to the doctor, Doc, here's my problem. He says, fine, take this. 2 days later, we're well, right? That's the mentality we have. It doesn't happen that way, natural healing. Our body's number one priority is to get us through every day. Healing is a luxury. Healing is a luxury. So you say, here, I'm eating all these better foods. Why is not everything instantly better? What your body is doing with all that better nutrition is getting you through the day without borrowing nutrition to keep you alive. It says, good, finally got some nutrition to survive. If there's any left over at the end of the day, that's what goes towards healing while we're sleeping. So obviously the more right we do, the more nutrition is available and the more healing happens at night and the faster it takes place. But healing is not just a straight, narrow road. Here we are sick, not straight up to health. Rather, it's more zigzag. We'll start off eating better, improving our diet slowly, gradually, and we start feeling better. And about the time you say, great, I'm feeling much better, That's when I say look out. Your body's going to go into some intense cleansing, intense healing. It's known as a healing crisis. It's just uncanny how often when a patient says to me, I'm feeling better, then I know tomorrow. I could observe for weeks they're feeling better. The more vitality, you just see it in their eyes, the way they act. But when they say it, I'm feeling better. I'm going to get a phone call first thing in the morning. Yeah. This straight line represents when you're feeling well. But ever so often, and there's no exact timetable here, the body gets enough energy in store, it wants to do some major house cleaning, spring cleaning. And that's when you go into a healing crisis. Let's say I was sitting in your home this evening, and you say to me, boy, next weekend, I've got to clean this place, it's a mess. I say, well, it looks fine. I said, no, you don't know what's under the beds. You don't know what's in the closet. So, the next weekend, I walk in your home, what do I see? Absolute mess. So I thought you were cleaning house. So you've got everything pulled out, working on it. Exactly how the body works. It stores these toxins in our tissues throughout the body. It'll pull them out when it has the time and the energy available, not before. You need to know that. Because you don't need to be scared about these healing crises. They will come. But it's well orchestrated, the body wanting to do it to clean house. Also, if there's any unfinished business, let's say that you had a tree fall on your roof, your house, and knock a big hole in it. So you get some tar paper and you roll over that and you nail some boards on there. 20 years pass. Decide to sell the house. That's something how we fix up the house when we're going to leave it. And so we roll back that tar paper. The identical hole is still there, isn't it? Unfinished business. The body's going to want to go back. And I'm talking about any kind of illness we've had where we have suppressed the healing activity with a drug. That's still on hold. One fella, he was in his 60s. He went on 100% juice. 3 days later, he woke up. He called me. He said, I cannot believe this. My ankle is swollen, black and blue. He said, I didn't do anything to it. I just was in bed. When I went to bed last night, it was fine. I didn't trip or twist it. I thought through all that. I said, well, if that's the case, then obviously it's something in the past, some unfinished business your body's wanting to work on. Have you ever sprained your ankle badly and probably had some kind of drugs? Well, have to have had some drugs to suppress the healing. I said, yeah, when I was 23 years old. I sprained it. They gave me some cortisone every day so I could get right back to work. I said, it's unfinished business. He said, well, what about when they stopped giving the cortisone? Didn't the body go back? No, it never had a chance to because your diet and lifestyle was so toxic. The body had to move on to other things. This is the first time it's going back to work on those. But again, I want to emphasize the body will never do that unless it knows it has the time and the energy. Now, it may not be convenient with your schedule, but the body will do it only when it has the energy available. So we have on page 35 the detoxification process, and then the breakdown, removal of dead tissues, and then the rebuilding comes. Now, it's during the detoxification and the tearing out of tissues that we have these healing crises. When they do come, they will last usually 3 days or 7 days. Go on over to page 42 at the top. The healing phase or the healing crisis operates in definite cycles. So once you start a healing crisis, I'm not talking about how often they occur. I'm talking about once one happens. They'll last either 3 days or 7 days or sometimes a multiple thereof. We find that our patients often have, if the healing crisis is going to happen, they usually start on weekends or when they go on vacation. You understand why? No stress, energy freed up, the body says, good. You've been preparing, you've been putting nutrition in the body, this is the first time I'm free. Monday mornings, boy, they're fun. All these healing crises that started on the weekends, right? So 3 days, 7 days, sometimes a multiple of that. That story about Ricky, 14 days, 2 7-day healing crises in a row. How often do they come and how badly are they? Look at the picture up here. In the beginning, they're more often and more intense. But as time goes on, they get further between and less intense. All right? You can just mark it on your calendar. Can I ease the pain when I have a symptom, a healing crisis? That's up to you. Just understand the more you do to suppress the symptom, the slower the process. But that's your choice. If you have something to do, you got work, you have this, whatever it is to go to, you feel you need to do something, that's fine. Just understand what you're doing. Know that you'll have to do it again later. Problems with stimulating. There are certain herbs that you can take to stimulate a cleansing. Is there anything wrong with that? Sure there is. Why wasn't the body already doing that if it needed to? Or if it was timed? See, our body heals on a priority basis. When you start eating better, your body's going to want to work on the thing that is most important to it in the right time. How do you know what's most important in your body? It's not always the symptom that you're complaining about. Hey, we fixed the sinuses, but yeah, he died of a heart attack in the meantime. You know, it was a successful surgery sinus-wise, but the heart quit in the middle of it. So we can stimulate through different herbs. We can flush the liver, the sinuses, but the question is, if that needed to be done, and probably did, why wasn't the body already doing it? Well, probably wasn't ready to. Had something else more important, or didn't have enough nutrition available. When the body gets around to it, it'll take time to do that. So if we force the cleansing, it's at the cost of some other part of the body. One patient had quite serious female problems. And as she began to change her diet, she began quite a discharge. And this went on for 2 months. And she'd run fevers off and on. And I was excited because I knew what was happening. Her body was trying to clean house. She called me one morning. She says, you know, I woke up this morning, I cannot see. I'm blind. And I said, what did you do yesterday? So, well, my mother gave me some herbs. Flushed the liver out. She thought the liver was congested. I said, no question the liver is congested. But timing. I said, I imagine also that the discharge has stopped as well. She said, yes. What do we do? What does the body tell you to do? You got a fever? Don't eat. Get in bed. Rest. Drink plenty of fluids. Whatever the body tells you, it will. Now, I promise you, and often in a healing crisis, you will feel like you want a pizza, but that's not what your body's asking for. And it's because when we're going through a healing crisis, we don't feel so good. And we've learned ways how to stimulate this body, and we like to feel good. So the body says, hey, pizza. You want instant relief? Okay, so we have to guard against doing that. But listen to what it's telling so we can get through these healing crises. Does it mean I'm going to go back through every crisis I've ever had, every disease and illness I've ever had? That's kind of a scary thought, isn't it? Not necessarily. First of all, the slower the transition, we talked about in the first half, taking your time, adding more fruits and vegetables, the slower the transition, the less intense healing crises you'll have. The body takes it more to, like cleaning out one room at a time in the house versus the whole thing all at once. And also, sometimes the body is good enough, it can deal with it without even telling us about it. You just kind of wake up and you feel kind of tired, and you're that way for 7 days, and suddenly it's gone. Must have been fixing a heart or something. Who knows? So the healing crises are friends. They're not to be feared. They only happen when the body's ready for them. Try to work with them. Give your body that chance. It's trying to undo the wrong you've done since you've told it to do that. How do I know if this symptom, this healing crisis, as you call it, is truly that, or is it just more of the disease process? The most definitive way to discern is if you have been feeling pretty good, and you went to bed, and you woke up, and here this symptom is out of the blue, and you think to yourself, yesterday, in fact the whole week, I've been pretty good on my diet. Yeah, I've had a little violation here and there, but overall it's pretty good, and I've been feeling great. That's a healing crisis. Because you're feeling good, your body said, yes, I want to cleanse now. All right? Now, it's possible that when you first start changing your diet, you had a disease process in motion. Let's just take cancer, for example. Think of it as an entity of its own. It has its own momentum going. And we start eating better. The first thing the body has to do before it can get to work on the cancer is heal itself. The body has to get its own vitality up so it's strong enough to kill the cancer. Well, that cancer's rolling. It's possible that cancer can kill the body before the body gets strong enough. Okay, that's just an analogy for you. What I'm saying is if we could keep the body alive long enough, what disease couldn't be turned around? I don't know of any. These incurable diseases that the medics talk about are only incurable because the people continue to do the wrong things that created the thing. That makes sense. It's incurable then, sure. On page 46, we ask the question, what is the healing capability of the body? I just basically answered that, but we have a motto at the clinic. You know, people call up and say, is it too late? I said, if you're still warm, come on in. How long does it take to get well? Page 48. As a general rule of thumb, 1 year for every 7 that you did it wrong. 1 year for every 7. Now you know why. I just told you. When you start eating better, the food that comes in today goes towards today's survival without borrowing. Therefore, if you want to speed up the process, do a lot more right. The more right you do, the faster it's going to happen. Talking about exercise, rest, proper attitudes. The more intense your diet, juicing, the faster it's going to happen. Speaking of juicing, page 49, if there are any home runs or boons to really pushing us forward in a hurry, it's juicing. Juicing. When I was 6 years old, my parents took me to the eye doctor, and he said, you need glasses, and so we were fitted. When I was 9 years old, my parents started going to some nutritional quack, and they bought a juicer. Every evening we'd have a glass of vegetable juice. Now, my mother had no idea how to make juice. I can still remember some of those formulas. We're going to give you some instruction on how to do it right. But she would just open the fridge, and whatever's there would go in there. It was nutrition, though. That's the important thing. Our whole family began to see tremendous health improvements. We didn't change anything else that first year as far as our diet. 6 months into this juicing business, I went to school one day, put my glasses on, everything was blurry. Went to the eye doctor, he said, vision is better than perfect. Now, it wasn't the juice per se, it was the alkaline nutrition. But what the juicing does, it puts that nutrition in a form that's very easy for our body to assimilate. Juicing removes about 90+% of the digestive work from the body. It takes a lot of energy to digest food. So if we can take that nutrition, concentrate it, keep it alive, put it in a form that's easy to assimilate, we're going to conserve a lot of energy. Some patients will put on what we call a juice diet, and that's where they consume only fresh juice, nothing solid, for 1 month up to 4 months. That's when we're in a big hurry. You've got some major illness we're dealing with. 1 month on just juice, they'll advance 6 months as if they were eating the proper way. Why? 2 reasons. One, of course, we've stopped the wrong input, I understand that. But number one, we're concentrating on nutrition. But more importantly, little energy expended on digestion. That energy reverted back to the body for cleansing and healing. So you need to get a juicer. It's the best health insurance for your family there is. And every day have at least 1 glass, preferably 2, juice, fruit in the morning, vegetable juice in the evening. The vegetable juice is actually the better of the 2, believe it or not. And it's because the nutrients are much more concentrated, a lot more minerals. But the fruit juice is good. I'm not saying don't have it. The vegetable juice should be primarily carrot, mother. Should be primarily carrot because it's the sweeter of the vegetable juices. And then adding to that anything else. And don't stick with just one favorite combination because we want a variety of different vegetables and therefore different nutrients. Beets, and don't use much beet juice. About a half a beet a day, a quarter of a beet is plenty because it's very potent as far as the liver cleansing. Celery, broccoli, cucumber, zucchini, whatever. So your glass needs to be about 80-90% maybe carrot juice, the rest, these other vegetables. And if you still have trouble with the flavor, add some apple juice to help sweeten it up. Generally, we say do not mix fruit and vegetable juices in the same glass. Apple's the one exception. It will combine quite well, and it'll sweeten it up for you. One family wrote a letter and said, because we got a juicer, we have literally saved $500 this first year on medical bills. There was no question in their mind, just from that first year of drinking that glass of juice a day. You want to take vitamin, mineral supplements? get a juicer. Do that first. That's the best vitamin mineral supplement there is. And there are times I'll recommend supplements. But every time we put something in a pill, we lose some of the vitality, some of the nutrition. So get a juicer. Now we've got several different juicers on the market. They're all of value. They all have good. A lot of it depends on your budget. But I would encourage you to try to save your bucks and buy more expensive ones. The quality of the juice is better. Also, usually the cleanup time is less than the more expensive ones. And they just don't wear out, the more expensive juicers. On page 52, we have kind of a sample menu of where you're wanting to head as far as diet. And obviously, the closer you can be to this, the better off. Breakfast, choice of fruit, or melons, freshly made juice, or dried fruit, or nothing at all. Wait a minute, I thought we had to have breakfast. That's the most important meal of the day. Probably the least important meal of the day. Now, just think about this. We have in this country been following that rule. Breakfast, big breakfast, smaller supper, eating our 4 basic food groups. We're one of the sickest nations in the world. It's time for a change. Trying to be a politician up here. You didn't get it. Okay. The reason breakfast is probably the least important is because you have been fasting all night long. The body's just got the cleansing process in motion. It's the only time it can really do house cleaning. Talking about daily maintenance house cleaning. Most people are not hungry in the mornings. How many of you are truly hungry at breakfast time? Very few. Now, how many of you eat breakfast because it's the thing to do? See, a lot more hands. It's the American way. The reason you're not hungry is your body is saying, hey, idiot, I am not through with that mess you put in here yesterday. Give me some more time. Let me clean this out. And I promise you, if you just start cutting out breakfast and just fasting, it takes you about 2 weeks to where you get used to, till your stomach quits the growling and the churning and the biting and all that, and you don't get weak and shaky mid-morning. You know, if you do, have a little juice or eat some fruit. But about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you'll find you are so light in the morning. But more than that, your overall health picture will improve tremendously because you're giving your body a chance to clean out every night, a full cleansing. Lunch. Now, since we are going to be working during the day and active, we want to eat something that's easy to digest. Something that's not going to require a lot of energy because we're going to have our energy tied up on work and thinking and emotion. We don't want food rotting in the intestine. So what are the easy things to digest? Fruits would be a good breakfast, lunch rather, or salads and something starchy, such as baked potato, rice, bread. Starch is more easy to digest than protein. We're going to save the protein meal to the evening, where there we will have, again, a salad, some steamed veggies if you'd like, and then a protein choice, whether that be fish, chicken, nuts, seeds, something protein. We save the more difficult food to digest in the evening when we're more relaxed, more energy available, more thorough digestion. Well, I thought we weren't supposed to eat a heavy meal at night. No. See, this is different. This is not a heavy American meal. This is a healthy meal. It will digest well. And if you need to snack between meals on fruit, as your body gets healthier and cleaner, you will find that you need less and less food to get by. The machine will burn cleaner. It takes less nutrition. I generally eat 1 meal a day. You'd be amazed at how little it is. And I work hard all day long. Now on weekends I eat more when I'm more relaxed. But during the day when I'm active, the body says, no thank you. I can't digest it anyway. Too busy. Let's just cut out the food. So I'll grab juice. I'll grab fruit. As far as eating a meal, that comes in the evenings. Juice, by the way, should never be part of your meal. Never. You have a glass of carrot juice, you sit down to salad and baked potato. Why would you not have those at the same time? You've got 2 meals, maybe 3 meals all at once. That's too much for the body. So the juice should be between meals or the meal itself, whichever you want to do. Rationalizing following healthful living. We'll conclude with this. We've got to go through every day anyway. we might as well do more right each day than the day before. And 10 years from now, you can be 10 years healthier than you are today, even though you're 10 years older. Now that's a nice thought, isn't it? And that's our choice. It's up to us to take that responsibility. And I don't want you to leave here today thinking, boy, I've got to change my entire lifestyle. It's just overwhelming. I don't think I can do it. I'm just throwing this whole thing out. Don't think that. Just make a plan. 5 years from now, I'm going to be eating much like this page right here we just looked at. 5 years. And one attorney came up after the seminar one time and he says, I'm working on the 25-year program myself. You take your time. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Gradual. And as you add more fruits and vegetables to your diet, you will find that it becomes easier. Your cravings will change. Your taste will change. You will enjoy eating the right things more and more. And it's not a have to. That's where we're trying to get to where it's just a lifestyle. And food doesn't control you, rather you control it. You control it. Most Americans live to eat, isn't that right? Versus eating to live. We need to change that. We need to change that. Weight is something that is a big problem in this country. 60% of Americans are overweight. 60%. The most overfed, undernourished country in the world. And we're so busy counting calories, and has it worked? No. One time a patient came in. He weighed 450 pounds. He was in his mid-40s. He was sent home to die. He had liver failure and kidney failure. The doctor said, we give up. A friend, on the way home from the hospital, brought him by my office. His friend was a patient. I said, I don't know what I can do. All we can do is give the body what it wants and see what it can do. It's the body's job to heal itself. I'm just a guide. So, I said, you're going to drink juice. 100% juice. Straight, fresh juice. Nothing solid. A week later, his kidney test was looking better. A month later, all the tests are clear. He's still alive today. This is years ago. But he came in about 6 weeks into this whole thing, and he said, I cannot figure something out. Now, I had never thought about this concept before he said something. He said, I was eating 1,200 calories a day and gaining weight. And I got out a pencil and paper and I started juicing, because you were making me drink a gallon of juice a day. And I knew that's a lot of calories. And I started calculating. It's 5,000 calories. He said, that doesn't make sense. I'm losing weight. In the first 4 months, he lost 150 pounds. It doesn't compute, does it? 5,000 calories a day, losing weight, gaining health. When he was eating 1,200 calories previously and gaining weight. So I said, I got to think about this a while. The word calorie, what does it mean? Energy, right. Our body wants calories, not for fat cells, but for energy. But our body is very particular about the type of calorie that it gets. It wants to know that if it's going to take that calorie and convert it to energy, that it has the catalysts, the vitamins and minerals, the enzymes to take that calorie and convert it to energy. So if we're eating dead calories, or empty calories, or acid calories, there's no catalyst present to convert the calorie to energy. And the best the body can do is convert some of those calories to energy with what little reserve it has, the balance go into fat. And we don't feel good and we're fat. If we put in the alkaline calories, the living calories, the liver says, thank you very much. You've got everything I need there to make energy. With this energy, the first thing the body wants to do is clean house, rebuild. Fat cells are something that should not be in a healthy body, excess fat cells. And they will go also in their own time on the priority scale, because fat is not always the number one priority. You got about to die of a heart attack, you think your body's worried about a few extra pounds? So if the allergies clear up, if you still have a weight problem, fine, just keep at it. In time, that'll come on the list. That'll be number one on the list. The body will start working on that. But don't look at changing your whole lifestyle for any one particular thing you want to cure. Don't do that. Say, I'm going to go on this program to lose weight. I'm going to go on this to clear up allergies. I'm going to go on this to take care of constipation. Whatever it is. Because if that doesn't change overnight or within a reasonable amount of time, a few weeks, you're going to get discouraged and say, boy, it's not worth it. I'll take the pill. Change your diet, change your lifestyle to get healthy. Get healthy. And to live a long, healthy life, quality health. That's what we're after. Thank you very much.